Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Mount Tam Integration Jam, the second annual Mount Tam Integration Jam, which is a celebration of good psychedelic practice from preparation all the way through navigation to integration and beyond, if there is in fact a beyond. I think there's always a beyond. So I'm very, very glad that you're here, and we're going to do another opening ceremony and things like that. But I just want to note for you all just a few things. We're glad you're here. We have a Discord channel that I will type in. It's tinyurl.com tamjam chat. I think it's tamjam chat. Yeah, tamjam chat. And if you go in there, you can kind of discuss, you can keep the conversations going, because an hour seems like a lot, but it isn't always. So we encourage you to go over there and hang out some more. The other thing that I would like to tell you is that 10 of our talks will have sign language. And so thank you, Andy, for coming back year after year and adding this element of accessibility. It's really special. And I think that's it. You know, we're here to have a good time, and we're going to talk about preparation and integration. We're going to talk about some of the things that you can expect over our weekend. But first, I would love to introduce Robin. So Robin is one of my partners at TAM Integration, and she leads the women's circles, right? As if you either you know or you don't know, TAM Integration offers support and education for people who are deeply committed to transformation, healing, and growth. And you know, the education looks like this, right? So 3 days of education. We also have workshops and things like that. We have a year-long coaching training for those of you who want to become integration coaches. That starts in October, and that's on the website too. But then support and service also looks like integration circles. And that's really where we started. We started by offering integration circles really because I needed a place to talk about my experiences, and we found lots of like-minded people who also wanted to process their experience and share their best practices and be in a place where people understood where they were coming from. And one of those people is Robin. And Robin showed up and she was like, I lead the women's circle now. And I was like, that's great news. I didn't know we had one. She's like, you do now. The link to the Discord server is just above you. It's I just typed it in tinyurl.com/tamjamchat. And please have fun. And so Robin, longtime practitioner, very sincere, wonderful, mindful, heartful being that super honored and overjoyed to call my friend. And thanks for being here. And thanks for opening the circle in a kind of a ritualistic and loving way.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It is a true privilege to be associated with TAM Integration. Jean Johnson and I were sharing the circle one night, and sort of like, believe it or not, our like eyes met through the ethers, and we decided that we were perfect companions to start the women's circle. Both of us are deeply committed to our psychedelic practices and realized that there are so many women that would like to share their stories and feel most comfortable in a space with other women. And that was a little over a year ago. We started twice a month, and now we're doing it every Thursday night. And we invite all women and people who identify as women to join us in that circle. It's really a great service to our community, and it creates community. And that's what I love so much about TAM Integration, is it's about creating community. That said, if everybody would like to maybe stand, we're going to be calling in the directions. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I am coming to you from the unceded lands of the Miwok tribe in Northern California, the land of the Pomo people. And I'm really honored to be in these lands as I am settling more and more into my life here on these lands. I can feel the deep presence of the ancestral peoples of this place that no longer inhabit these lands. And that is sorrowful to me. And so I like to celebrate them by acknowledging them being in this circle, and the importance of acknowledging the peoples that go before us and the land where all that we need to survive comes from, all the plants and the trees and the animals. So I'm going to stand here and we'll call in the 4 directions. So we're facing to the east, the place of the rising sun, and we take a deep breath and release. Grandmothers and grandfathers, spirits of the east, the place of the rising sun and where the wind blows, the place of air and new beginning, the innocent child, the place where we take our first steps. Welcome, welcome, spirits of the east. Come into this circle and join us today, please. Ho. And we turn to the south. Beings and ancestors of the south, the place of fire and growth, the place of the wise child, where we have the opportunity to honor all the sacred plants, the place where these incredible plants come to us. Thank you so much for coming into our lives, sacred medicine plants. Thank you to all that we are able to learn and all the teachers that are before us. Spirits and ancestors of the South, welcome into this circle. Ho. And we turn to the West. Spirits and ancestors of the West, the place of the setting sun, a place of transformation and water, where we cleanse ourselves within each cycle of our lives. Spirits of the West, thank you for holding us as we go through these major transformations. Welcome, spirits of the West, to this circle. We appreciate your presence. Ho. We turn to the north. Spirits of the north, great wisdom, the place of earth. Rock beings in their great ancient wisdom, join us in this circle. Ancient spirits, we welcome all that you have to share with us in your knowledge. And we appreciate your witnessing our growth and knowledge gaining. Spirits of the north, welcome into this circle. Ho. And then up to the sky. Oh, great spirits of the sky, Father, and the cosmos beyond, the great unknown. Thank you, Father Sky, for holding this beautiful container for our glorious Mother. We appreciate you and all that you do to protect and hold us, the place where the rains come from and the cloud beings that speak to us in a language that we don't comprehend except with our hearts. Father Sky, thank you for, again, holding us gently in your arms and shaking us up with your thunder beings and your lightning. Thank you for being with us in this circle, Father Sky. We welcome you most wholeheartedly and with open arms. And now we go down and touch the ground, because this is the place of Mother Earth. Oh, Mother Earth, thank you so much for being with us in this beautiful day. And thank you so much for providing every single thing that we need. Thank you for all of your beings, the creepy crawlies, the winged ones, the four-leggeds, and thank you for nourishing us two-legged beings. Mother Earth, Mother Earth, Mother Earth, may we come back to you in symmetry. May we come back to you in a reciprocal, responsible way. By doing these sacred plant medicines that you provide for us, may we gain again a beautiful heart connection with you and walk gently upon you. Thank you again, Mother Earth, for all the waters that you provide, that we may survive and thrive. Welcome, Mother Earth, into this circle. Oh. And each one of us, please hold your hand over your hearts and acknowledge your presence. Acknowledge all that you do, because each one of us brings great, great gifts to this planet, to this community. Thank you so much for your presence in this circle today. I welcome you wholeheartedly. I welcome you as a sister. I welcome you, brothers and sisters, and all the beings. Thank you so much for offering yourself to your own growth and spirit. Ho. The circle is open.
Thank you, Robin. That was wonderful. I wanted to acknowledge that I'm on Mohican land, and when I moved here, I was sort of excited to get involved, or at least introduce myself. And it turns out that the Mohicans had been pushed west, many, many years ago. They don't live here anymore. They're, I think, in Wisconsin. But there is a local Native American church that is working in the area, and we generally make donations as part of what we're doing here. And so we will be making a donation to the Native American church. So I just want you to know that we are committed to contributing, living in reciprocity as part of our integration process.
Mhm.
And so we want to, the title of this talk is, Why is Integration Our Jam? Which was actually written, I believe, by Nicole Lilly. I was talking to Nicole, and she, who's speaking at the guide. There's a conversation about guiding and trip sitting, and she'll be presenting on that tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And she came up with that turn of phrase, which I like a lot. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. What do you think, Robin?
Oh my gosh, it is essential that we talk about integration as part of our healing process.
Mm-hmm. And so, of course, we know that preparation, and so probably a lot of you, some of this and maybe some of it's new. We're just going to cover the nuts and bolts as sort of a foundation for all of the super cool stuff that's happening later today and tomorrow and the next day. So one of the things that we know is that good integration starts with preparation. That some people might say that as soon as you consider taking the medicine, that you have started your journey already. You started your journey of preparation, and that the way you approach it says a lot, and the way that you approach it can often have a lot to do with the experience that you have and what follows. And that this preparation can loosely, right, just for the sake of we have 40 minutes, it can loosely be broken up into two different types of preparation. One of which is lifestyle preparation, which is kind of living a life that supports spiritual work, and sometimes spiritual or healing or what have you, that supports work that involves psychedelics. And then there's kind of the proximal preparation, which might be things like doing a dieta, or doing a social media fast, or cleaning your house, or reading holy books, or things like that. So do you want to tell us a little bit about, so with those two, you're going to tell us how those play into your life, Robin?
Yes, I would love to. I'm not going to show you because my room is not prepared for video exposure, but I'm sitting in an altar. Like, this entire room that I'm in is for meditation and is an altar. It also has a closet for my clothes and everything. But I look around, and I have created an altar here, and there are all objects on my altar that have significance in my spiritual practice, objects that I have picked up in nature, and things that people have given me. I have many, many stone people here with me, and crystals and plants. And I added to the altar, in honor of our jam, a bouquet from my garden. And all of this is a place that creates a sanctuary for myself. And I find that having some kind of space that is a sanctuary or a meditation space is essential in preparing myself for my sacred journeys and for the day. So that is one way that I like to prepare
Can you
myself.
think of can you think of a time when preparation really came in handy? When you were glad you did it? Maybe you were in the throes of a journey and you were like, man,
Oh,
I'm glad I did
well, let's talk about my ayahuasca practice. So
it.
I have a 13-year ayahuasca practice and have been co-facilitator and helper for many, many, many ceremonies.
Mhm.
And when I first started the practice, I came to it with great reverence. And then as I went on, maybe I kind of like got a little looser in my preparation and immediately found that, oh, wait a minute, that makes a much harder journey when I perhaps don't pay strict attention to the food diet restrictions, or when I am not as mindful in my communications with the people, in my life, a partner or my family. And so I found that when I come to ceremony, I'm very specific about my preparation practices, and that drops me immediately into a place of acceptance, because I find, many of us find that there's a lot of anxiety that happens in the come up, for instance, like with ayahuasca and psilocybin sometimes. And so the more at peace I am with myself and the more at ease that I am, the less that is an issue. So that's one way. And so I tightened up after my preparation practices, and always come from a place of gratitude. I find that is paramount.
That's beautiful. It's wonderful. Can I tell a story?
Yes, please.
So I do a practice called feeding your demons,
Mm,
which is a practice that I learned back in like 2008, 2009 from a woman named Lama Tsultrim Allione. And she's based out of Colorado. She's a female Tibetan Lama. And the practice is basically a shadow work practice where we interact with a part of us that's giving us trouble, right? Like could be entitlement, could be any number of things. Energy vampirism, who knows, right? So anger, sadness, depression, what have you. And then you visualize the thing and you have a conversation with it and see what it needs, and then heartfully engaging with it, right, in a nurturing way, because we have a tendency to fight or flight, right? Fight, freeze, fawn, what have you. And so finding a new creative way to deal with it. And the interesting thing is, we all kind of do that, and we all have some level of self-criticism, some of us more than others. And one of the things that I've noticed from working with lots and lots and lots of people is that the people who seem to have trouble, they'll say things like, oh, the mushrooms were very mean to me, or they yelled at me, or they were very, very harsh with me. When you poke and prod over time, one of the things you find is that these are people who have really ingrained self-criticism, right? That it looks like the mushroom is beating them up, but oftentimes it's themselves beating themselves up. And I happen to have that. I can beat myself up a lot, and sometimes before I started doing this practice, it seemed like the mushrooms were yelling at me. Maybe sometimes they are, but it's hard to say. Yeah, it's a mixed bag, of course. So what I have found over time of doing this practice for years and years and years is that when I show up into psychedelic space, and the things that trouble me or try to shame me or beat me up or things like that, I now have tools for engaging with them in a new way that I didn't have before. And it's as a result of spiritual practice that I did outside of psychedelic space enabled me to have a much more useful, I hate to use the term useful, but just, less terrifying, right? Less heart-wrenching time in psychedelic space.
Yeah.
Beneficial is a great word. Thanks, Paulmarq. So that's preparation, right? Dietas, right? Social media fasts, long-term spiritual practices. Of course, we know that the John Hopkins, some of the first studies they did was studies with meditators, and recognizing that meditators seem to have more of the positive effects of psilocybin and fewer of the unpleasant effects of psilocybin. They could have almost stopped there.
Yeah. Yeah. I have found that to be true. Before I was in a psychedelic practice before I became a meditator. And since I've become a meditator, I do find that, again, I'm more prepared to experience the challenges of my ego, going, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to let go of this. And it's just like, it's okay, honey, it's okay. Let's just sit and be still with this. And there's a much easier flow.
I almost want to invite Paulmarq up on stage, being that he will be speaking later. We'll see if he feels like coming up. Oh, he's rejoining the webinar as a panelist. Let me just make you a co-host, and that should enable you to speak or turn your camera on.
Well, hello. I do need to turn my video on.
Good morning,
hey,
brother. I was so not ready for camera, but
oh,
you look pretty ready for camera.
So beautiful, so beautiful.
I don't have my lights and everything set, but I was just planning on sitting and listening. However, when a learning opportunity shows up, I do feel it necessary to speak up. And yeah, Dr. Sandra Peach is in his summer home right now. I have a cat, Peach, that is very active on Clubhouse, sometimes more so than me. But my following asks, where's Peach, at every time I show up, because he will chime in. I think he's napping right now, though.
It's a summer house. I love that. Sun worship kitty.
Where's my cat? So yes, we do love Peach. I love Peach. He's a little. He is my familiar. But as I was saying, that there was a learning opportunity there, and I see so many people who are attached to the entitlement, and who wants to talk about we cannot charge for spiritual work. And I have to say that the universe demands balance. So you give to where you were fed. That is the initial idea behind tithing. And so there was a time when the village took care of us and fed us. However, we have to have money to pay our electric, our water, all of the things, even for our internet, so that we can have a conference like this. So it is important for those of us that appreciate our work and benefit from our work to actually support us in a way that helps us be sustained.
Right.
So that's what I have to say.
And I would like to note that not all commerce is capitalism.
Exactly.
Like, this is actually communism. Like, we are the workers who have seized the means of production. Like, there has never been a better opportunity for communal work like this. than now. The fact that like everybody can, have their own $15 Zoom account and get up on there and share their gifts with the world is amazing.
And it takes money to be able to get onto that platform. That is important as well.
I would like to, bring up as well that, even in remote villages, there is a reciprocity that happens.
Exactly.
In the original lands where the medicines come from, that there's a reciprocity that happens, that you're honoring the skill set and
yes.
the benefit and the magic that is brought, and healing that is brought into the village. And by, sustaining those that are the channels for that, is a way of creating, like you mentioned, Paulmarq, balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Aho. And
Yeah.
ashe.
Yeah.
And back to our regular programming.
Yes.
Right. This show is sponsored by us. Integration. So the idea also is that not only does this journey start before we take the molecule into our body, as soon as we think about taking the molecule, the healing and the growth and the insights continue days, weeks, or months after the molecule leaves the body. And so what's up with that? What's up with that, Robin and Paulmarq?
So in my ayahuasca circle, what we say is the real work begins on Monday. And when again, when we began the circles, we didn't know about integration as a word, as a specific practice. And we would keep coming back and coming back and coming back, and maybe sometimes doing the same work over and over again, because we didn't have the skill sets in some ways to integrate into our daily practices the changes and the insights that we received. And I did a lot of investigation about that. It's like, what is that? Why now suddenly integration? Why are we understanding this? And why didn't we, quote unquote, need it before? Why wasn't it something that was prominent in these ritualistic psychedelic practices that I have participated in for decades? And what I've come to realize is, the shaman used to live down the street. And like you were, and that the whole village knew that you were facing some difficulty or challenge, or you're about to go out for the hunt. And so it was supportive of making the changes. It was supportive, the whole village. And that if you hit a wall, for instance, you could just go down and talk to your shaman. And we don't have that in the Western culture. And so that's where, I would love to know who had the aha moment and said, oh, this is about integration. We have got to integrate these lessons, integrate the new practices in the spaciousness that is created by clearing out during the psychedelic experience.
Well, I have noticed that it's easier to destroy a wall than to create one. And so if we do these experiences and we are tapping into some sort of foundational thing, and we remove that support, we have to put something else in there to support it. And this is what's going on. You know, if you take out a weight-bearing wall, you're going to have to put in some sort of a beam to support it, or, you know, perhaps a half wall, a window, a column, something. And what happens is when we go into these journeys, and it can happen, I've seen it happen anywhere from breath work to Kundalini awakening to you know, LSD, mushrooms, and ayahuasca. You know, any journey that you go on, you leave changed. And it's important to have that little bit of, after vacation, let's get back into real life. And notice that your soul is always just a little bit ahead of you and a little bit behind you. So there's, you know, you're always leaving a path, you know. So it's like, it's soul first, not purse first, but it is soul first, and you are being led. And you know, where I am now, I'm already thinking about where I'm going to be on Sunday, you know. And so the integration is cleaning up that old stuff. And I always say, you clear up old business before you start new business.
Oh, if only.
Yeah. Guys,
That is my thing. But you know, and again, I'm teaching people to be in the land of whelm, where you're not overwhelmed, you're not underwhelmed, you're just present. And that takes work. Yeah, it takes work. And you have to get present, especially when I'm working with people and taking them to places where they are new and where they are the innocent. You know, if you talk about the hero within, and it's really interesting. I have my own thoughts on the idea of the hero, but the book, The Hero Within, is just fantastic. And it's about our different archetypes. And whenever you start something new, you are the innocent. And so you don't know all the information. And it is important. And that's why the integration is important. Preparation is also important, because if you're prepared, you know what may happen, you know what may come up. If you've been hiding things, that's going to bubble up. So whatever you've suppressed will be uncovered in a journey, depending on how much, you know, how high of a dose of, and whatever it is. But you will see those things, and they aren't necessarily demons, but they are parts of you that you have not loved. And I am for radical love and acceptance.
Well said.
Well said. Yeah.
And I do think that there was quiet, you know, the quiet, like, folk wisdom around integration. Like, you know, people who have, and traditions who have done brain change work, consciousness change work, you know, have always kind of supported that with things like good ethics is a good preparation, right? If you're living an honest life, you're going to have a better time, you know? And then simple, you know, self-care and simply, you know, just simplifying your life sorts of practices. My big introduction to integration, and it wasn't called that, was through Be Here, the book Be Here Now.
Right.
One of the, you know, I was back in college, I was a little kid, I was getting a little too high. And one of the big kids, and those of you who know me have heard me tell this story 1,000 times, one of the big kids, he was probably like 27. And he was like, read this, you'll feel better. And in the back of Be Here Now was something called Cookbook for a Sacred Life. And it had meditation practices and, you know, how to clean up your diet and how to read spiritual books and how to do a little bit of yoga. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like the stuff that's going to help me stay in touch with the insights that I've had, because the experiences I had seemed more true than everyday life. And I kind of wanted to stay there forever. And it was like, okay, well, you do spiritual practice and maybe you get to stay there. What I didn't have, and when you look at the hero's journey, is like the part of the hero's journey is like coming back to the village and sharing what you've learned. Like, I didn't have a community that could receive what I had to say without being a little worried for my well-being. You know, people were kind of freaked out when I was like, oh yeah, I met God, you know, she's awesome. And so it wasn't until later that these sort of integration communities and a little bit more widespread adoption in popular culture of psychedelics, that I sort of was able to find, a solid community. That, I mean, I had a community that I'd party with if I wanted to, but, to take these concepts seriously and to take my growth seriously took me a little bit longer to, took a little bit longer to find for me.
Mhm. I had the benefit of having a sangha in my ayahuasca circle, and we would sit together regularly and integrate together. We didn't know that that's what we were doing at the time, and again, that helped me to understand again the importance of community in preparation and integration process, and that as solo practitioners, we don't always have that opportunity. And so I'm really grateful for the burgeoning integration circles and the ability for us to connect and share our stories, because storytelling also is a great way to prepare, to learn from our elders, like Daniel was talking about, and then to share with our communities. And in spaces like this are wonderful ways to lead a spiritual life, to lead a life of being more authentic. Is when we speak from our hearts and share our stories, we bring a vulnerability, and I think that vulnerability has great strength, and that's something that has been eschewed in our culture. And I would like to bring up that being vulnerable going into a place, being open going into a psychedelic space, is another wonderful way to prepare.
Yeah, I want to say I like vulnerability. I mean, I do like vulnerability. Parts of me still struggle with it, of course.
Yeah.
Things like vulnerability, humility.
Mm.
All right, this is kind of one of the big gifts of psychedelics, is when the psychedelic decides to mop the floor with you, and you're like, oh, right, I see where it's really at. And it's a beautiful thing when we can do it, when we reach out to do something like making amends. It's a big deal. It's a beautiful big deal to reflect, and it's always much appreciated. And I think that it's part of our gig is to create a culture where it's a little more safe to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's possible, where we're not going to, get our heads torn off, and we're not going to be excommunicated, and we can
Burned
go
at the
through
stake.
processes. What's that?
Burned at the stake.
Burned at the stake. Type 1 in the chat if you've ever been burned at the stake in a past life.
There it is. One.
Those of us
we laugh about that, but it is no laughing matter. And more and more now that we are opening up in these communities and opening up, being vulnerable, and stepping into a place of trust with our facilitators and with each other in these integration circles and webinars like this, that there is an opportunity for us to recognize that we aren't being burned at the stake anymore, and that we aren't being excommunicated, because we are a growing force. And I'm really grateful for education opportunities, like Paulmarq said, the learning opportunity to be here with amongst friends, and having someone to relate with going into a psychedelic experience is also a wonderful preparation.
Yeah. I do want to note that somebody typed a question about drug interactions and antidepressants and what have you, and MDMA. And I just want to say that I'm not an expert at that. That's a question for a professional, a pharmacist or a psychiatrist. What I would suggest is that you go to the Discord channel and ask, and I'm sure like somebody will post links that'll point you in the right direction. I don't want you to think that I didn't see your question, and I do think it's important. I don't know if we're going to be covering that this conference so much, although there are some old videos, I think maybe on our YouTube channel about it, but please, yeah, post it in Discord and we'll try and get someone to answer you.
There's information out there about these kinds of things more and more. Again, community, community, community. I think community is an excellent opportunity for preparation and integration, and again, telling our stories. So
Yeah.
thank you everyone for being here to hear our stories.
Would either or both of you like to talk about what we're preparing for, like the talks that either you're presenting or that you're excited about? If you're going to hang out and be here for other talks, if you want to share who you're psyched about, or if you're psyched about yourself, that's great. I know Paulmarq's psyched about himself.
I'm psyched about the panel that I'm going to be in. I am an advocate for women's voices, and that in my world, bringing forth women's voices in this psychedelic space is key, because we've been so marginalized, and that there's an opportunity to shift the way we think about these practices when we have an equal playing field for all voices. And so what my panel is going to be talking about at 11:30 today is bringing in the divine feminine into the psychedelic space. And, you can see behind me some of my paintings. And, I've been a long time proponent for women gathering together in community. So being on this panel with 4 other women that I admire in the psychedelic space is like a dream come true for me, to get the word out about women creating community together, because that's our origin, is women, gathering, taking care of the babies. And for people who identify as women, welcoming them into the space as well. Again, all feminine voices. There are so many ways to be a woman, and we need you to stand up and speak and share your stories, and to acknowledge that the earth is a divine feminine, and that we're walking emanations of the divine feminine. And I'm really grateful to have that opportunity this lifetime, to be in a female body, and to have this perspective. And I'm excited about a lot of the other talks as well. I have a list. I set up my schedule, and it's all leaving my mind right now, because we're on screen, and I'm like, but Paulmarq is one of the speakers I'm looking forward to hearing.
Yay! I love that. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to all of the conversations, and hopefully this won't be like Clubhouse, where I pop into a room and then find myself on stage. It happens a lot.
That's like a cultural thing these days. I mean, that's a gift of Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Pull people up.
It's like, Paulmarq's here. Let's bring him up. Okay.
There's some amazing wisdom in being shared in these in the next couple of days. And
yes, there's lots of wisdom, and I'm looking forward to it. And of course, I'm looking forward to my own talk, being able to create a space for the radical self-acceptance. But what I say, my goal in life is to create sacred, safe spaces for people to completely love and accept themselves without guilt or shame. So that is what I do. and that touches everything I do. And I am looking forward to really spending time. And I welcome questions. So if you know you're coming to my room, bring a question, and I will do my best to make sure that that answer is covered. And yeah, this is going to be a fantastic weekend. The only thing is that usually I go to these in person, and I'm missing out on samples. I love I love going and sampling at an expo. But otherwise,
put your address in the chat.
Yeah, right. Send you a sample too if you like, Paulmarq.
You know what? I will definitely do that. Here, I'll tell you what, I'll put my email there so you can. If you email me for address, I will definitely send. Say samples. I definitely will send my email, my address back.
And we're going to want to report at the next Cam Jam.
So coming up next, we have Tom Pinkson. Tom Pinkson is an old head, as we say, right? He's been doing this work. He's been working with, Peyote Church for decades and decades. And I first got turned on to him. Somebody was like, you got to watch this guy do Facebook Lives out of his garage. And so I did. And it's so gentle and so profound and so thoughtful, and really enjoy his presence. And I've never actually got to have a conversation. We've done a little emailing, but this will be our first conversation, and I'm really looking for that, forward to that. And then after that is Robin's talk, and then after that, veterans. We're going to be talking to Colin Wells of Veterans Walk and Talk, and Ron Millward of Balanced Veterans. And apparently the rate at which veterans kill themselves is horrifying. Is absolutely horrific. The amount of medications a lot of these people are on that just don't seem to work and don't seem to help. The amount of pain that these people are going through without any kind of support from the government, right? Which, if the government's going to support anybody, you would think that this would be the population, and it's not really happening. And so these are groups of people who have really taken community care to the next level. And so 22 a day. I feel tears welling up. It's a lot. It's a lot of people.
Unfortunately, there are groups evolving that are helping veterans to get to the sacred plant medicines.
Right. That's who we're talking to.
Yeah. I've had an opportunity to work with the Heroic Hearts Project in Peru, facilitating at a ayahuasca retreat center, and I commend these brave people for coming in and being so committed to their healing process. Everyone, all y'all, I want to honor you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your service. And I do discounts for veterans and for public servants, because I think we all need the touch, the energy work, whatever I can do to support. And sometimes it's just being an ear to listen.
Yeah.
I would like to riff on that just a minute about being witness. We talk about preparation. We're talking about preparation and integration. And sometimes, someone is sharing what's going on with them with us, and we feel like we're not prepared, for instance, to hear or to help someone, for instance. I would like to acknowledge the importance and the power of being witness, of just listening, and deep listening and conscious listening is the foundation, I think, of really amazing help for people, so there's a lot of
beneficial.
Yeah, very beneficial. Wow.
And while we're on the topic of life-saving work, we're then going to talk to Toby and Mitch Gomez from Dance Safe. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Dance Safe, but they, there was something called the Rave Act that got passed many years ago. And what it did is it said that if you were throwing an underground party, or you were throwing a party, festival, concert, and somebody, I'm gonna get this wrong, but the result of the law is that you couldn't do drug testing anymore, right? Because if you acknowledge that there might be drugs there, you could be held liable, right? And so people, and it's so interesting, people will tell me they will go to concerts in Canada, or Portugal, and there are big widespread drug testing booths, and people can get their drugs tested so that they know that they're not going to die. And that this has been a real struggle in America because of our kind of puritanical nature. And so Dance Safe has kind of gone out on a limb in a lot of ways, in a lot of places, and offers testing and education to people who might not ordinarily get it. And so he's going to be talking with Toby from Altered States Integration, who's also a wonderful harm reductionist. Toby's done a lot of work with like Zendo, who's trips at a lot of people in a lot of different environments. And so after that, we have Will Sue, who you may know from Goop, right? He's pals with Gwyneth Paltrow, and so he's going to be talking about his spiritual practice and spiritual approaches. And then we're going to do music. We're going to close with music. We're going to talk about clinical and ceremonial uses of music, and we're going to have three sound healers, and one of whom is Eric, who's co-facilitator of integration circles. He works at Polaris Insight, Dr. Eric, and he works on the MAPS clinical trials with MDMA and makes really, really good ketamine playlists because he does ketamine therapy. And then Hami, who's also a veteran. Hami is the sound healer, and Jazz is a sound healer. Jazz has been here in the past. If you might have met her at a previous jam. And so then they're going to talk about that for a little while, and then they're going to play music. So that's how we're closing out the day.
It's going to be a great day. All the whole weekend is fantastic. Like I said, I've got my list, which is on the computer, which is behind the screen here, and I don't want to fuss with it. Leonard Picard, and there's Lorna Liana, and I think Beth Weinstein is speaking, and there are so many amazing voices that some people haven't been heard before, are not maybe as familiar. And I like that there is a plethora of variety in what we're going to be hearing about this weekend.
Yeah.
Lots of different angles.
Lots of different angles.
Thank you for being so inclusive.
We just got to stick together.
Yes.
And it never made sense to me. That was one of the things that I loved about like high school, is that the hippies and the punk rockers would hang out together if they had drugs to share.
That's what I loved about pot. I was like, yeah, you pass the bowl around, right? And cocaine, it's like everybody's sneaking off into the bathroom to be selfish. I'm like, what are you doing? Where's our community?
What's the joke? What's the difference
between the rotation?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a hippie and a punk?
I don't know.
Punks are good people pretending to be bad, and hippies are bad people pretending to be good.
You know?
Sort of feel like as a hippie, I can say that.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm not going to disagree.
Well, it's just a joke you're disagreeing with. All right. I love you guys. I'll see you in 15 minutes for Tom Pinkson. You're all welcome to come into the Discord chat. Again, will somebody type it in there one more time before I close out the room? Yes, thank you, Andy. Andy's schedule is on the website. So I guess I'll type it in. You want something done right? Do it yourself.
Well, there is that. If you want to do if you want to do some healing, do it yourself, right?
Yeah. Healer, heal thyself.
All
Yeah.
right, many blessings all. Much
Bye,
love.
guys. See you later.
Bye con leche.